Approximately 2,000 years ago, as human beings became increasingly hostile to the mystical elements of their world, the yokai of Japan split into two factions: those who could wield supernatural powers and those who could not. The ones who could not were largely comprised of anthropomorphic bipeds. They desired to live much as the humans did, but separate from them. The supposed true yokai rejected their brethren, some even subjugating them as viciously as the humans fought all supernatural creatures. Even within the non-supernatural creatures, more factions emerged. The warm-blooded creatures could largely coexist in similar fashion, leaving out those who had non-mammalian traits: amphibians, reptiles, birds, insects, fish, and the like. This faction fled Japan entirely, leaving behind a society that successfully shrouded itself from humans, yet unsuccessfully hid from the true yokai. The faction with non-mammalian traits that fled Japan embedded itself across the globe, but a substantial contingent made the shores of northeastern America home, and eventually founded the hidden city beneath what was then simply an island called Manhattan by the Algonquin Munsee people. Paralleling the advancement in human technology for 1,000 years, this mammal-only anthropomorph society was the one Miyamoto Usagi grew up in. With its own internal strife, to be sure, but one that remained prey to the yokai as well. This society developed Kaikishi warriors, the only ones among them who could still harness mystical energy, to fight against the yokai. The most powerful weapon in this fight was the keystone, a sentient crystal that served as the tutelary deity of Neo Edo and its surrounds where the anthropomorphs lived. It empowered ordinary items with the ability to affect damage on and trap yokai. It also powered a vast shimmer border wall that kept the islands of Miyamoto Usagi's society separate from humanity. Beyond the Milky Way galaxy, two species vied for control of vast swatches of the universe: the Krang and the Machine. While the Krang were deadlocked in war with the Triceratons, the Machine took the opportunity to aim for Earth after successfully conquering the Unu people. Thanks to taking control of the Unu leader, Kagehito, they were able to send him to Earth to prepare their way. He was a pawn whose life did not matter to them if he failed or was slain in the process. His job was to attach their device, known as the clavis, to a power source great enough to open a portal big enough to fit the whole Machine force through. Kagehito found his power source in the keystone among Miyamoto Usagi's people. Kagehito then took the place of their tiger-faced shogun in order to get close enough to the keystone to attach the clavis. The Neko Ninja crew realized that the shogun was no longer himself, and reached out to Miyamoto Usagi, who accepted a mission to strike down the false shogun. Just before Kagehito was able to accomplish his task, the samurai rabbit snuck into the palace at night and struck the disguised Unu clean through. As he did so, he pierced the keystone. The piercing of the keystone unleashed a wave of energy that sucked in all yokai for miles around, as well as Kagehito. It left behind a smaller chunk of the keystone, eventually called the Omurasaki by Miyamoto Usagi. While the samurai had succeeded in his quest and unknowingly halted the Machine invasion by extension, he would be branded a traitor for the rest of his life. This led his descendants to take on a quiet rural life as farmers for the next 1,000 years. Meanwhile, a few hundred years after Kagehito and Miyamoto Usagi clashed, the Krang finally broke their stalemate with the Triceratons. They set their sights next on the world that the Machine had tried and failed to conquer, Earth. In a classic pincer move, they sent down two advanced fighters on either sides of the globe, much as the Machine had done with Kagehito, to assess the situation. One near Neo Edo among the human population of Japan, and one in the hidden city of Northeast America. In Japan, this advanced force took over many clans of fighters and their livestock, splitting his controlling Krang hive mind ever thinner. At the same time, the one in the hidden city tried to amalgamate the yokai and humans he encountered into his exosuit, growing to an enormous size, seemingly unconquerable. The force in Japan finally met its match in 4 human mystic warriors, analogs of the Kaikishi warriors, who forged their own weapon, the key to the Twilight Realm. In unleashing the key's power to seal away the Krang, these warriors managed to reach the Krang Titan of the Hidden City, although the magic was far weaker there. While it did suck away the Krang symbiotic flesh of the amalgamated Titan, it left behind bony remnants of his exosuit and Krang body, as well as his yokai-infused blood, which would come to be known as Empyrean. As much more mundane strife plagued Japan in coming years, one clan sought a supernatural force to ally with in order to achieve victory. The Foot Clan was not powerful enough to breach the Twilight Realm, where the Krang were imprisoned, but they were able to communicate through it. Their leader, Orokusaki, offered to ally with them in exchange for power. The Krang were able to fit a myriad of fragments of an exosuit through the Foot Clan's channel, but that was all. The Foot Clan went to work destroying their foes with every intention of releasing their Krang masters when they subjugated more mystic warriors, and thereby find where the key was hidden. When his daughter realized the supposed demon that her father had allied with was not their salvation, but rather a wholly corrupting force, she defected to form her own clan, the Hamato. The matriarch Karai and her new Hamato clan struggled against the Foot Clan with their powerful mystic arts of Ninpo. When Karai realized it was not enough, she transformed herself into a sword that pierced the veil with the Twilight Realm and locked her father there alongside her in a prison dimension of his own, separate from his Krang masters so that they could not awaken him. Her sacrifice lasted for 500 years. Seeing how the Hamato released their master Shredder from his imprisonment, the Foot Clan worked to find the ancient key that would release the Krang. They located the key but did not yet possess it, at the same time that Miyamoto Usagi's descendant, Yuichi Usagi, made his way to Neo Edo on the eve of his 16th birthday. After Yuichi clashed with Kagehito and the clavis was finally attached to the keystone, a wave of dimension-weakening energy hit Earth. The Foot Clan knew that now was the time to go after the key and open the portal for the Krang. They succeeded on the same day that Yuichi Usagi clashed with the Machine for the second time. Two pillars of magenta light reached up to the sky, as it had over 500 years ago, paving the way for an invasion of ruthless symbiotes. Two portals were forcibly shut by wrenching their conduits away, the key and the clavis both. Two spaceships were destroyed, cleaved through the middle, as the portals closed at the same time. Two malicious forces were stopped in their tracks by mutant teenagers.